Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. Gold and silver are devastating to debt. As many of us have participated in this community and communicated and exchanged ideas, I think there's something that's amiss. That's something that we've sort of forgotten about as we have, made our way through and navigated the realms of precious metals. For many of us, we've studied it from sideways to Sunday as to what these metals mean, what their purpose is, and what they serve. And I know it's been talked about, but this video is about empowering the community. For anybody that comes across this video, for anybody who acquires gold and silver as a way to protect themselves against economic instability. Make no mistake, gold and silver have been used as money for thousands of years. And even though both of these particular metals are not used in currency these days, their properties of money remain intact. Because whether dormant or not, or whether or not central banks hold gold or not, is empowering. It's something that I think many of us need to reflect on from time to time. And that's just it. Gold and silver, they really do devastate debt. And I think that's why many central banks are holding gold, and why, in many cases, a lot of us hold silver. Now, silver's performance compared to gold as of late is quite volatile. In fact, many can say that with the rise of gold and silver prices for the two times in recent history that we are aware of, what I call anomalies, because they were very rare and unusual circumstances in 1980 when the Hunt brothers cornered the market on silver, well, gold rose as well. And it was during that time that the ratio between gold and silver narrowed greatly. Well, in 2011, we saw the rise of gold and silver as well, but a lot of that was because of increased demand for silver and gold, and supplies for the products themselves were kind of tight, and that's what caused a lot of the increase in price. It doesn't mean there was a silver shortage, doesn't mean there was a gold shortage. In fact, if you look back at records and data, there's been a vast increase in the production of both gold and silver since around the turn of the last century. Gold and silver, in spite of more of it out in the world today than ever before, the explosion of population, the digital age, and the like, gold and silver have survived as instruments of wealth. That's right. These are instruments of wealth, whereas this is an instrument of debt. Public and private debt, by the way. That's what this is an instrument of. Fiat currency, indeed. Now, make no mistake, this is valuable. And it is valuable because of the federal government declaring it so through this private institution known as the Federal Reserve. That's right, which some people think controls a lot of the economy, and others think that, they are the forebears of manipulation to suppress the prices of these, gold and silver. So, how are these going to devastate debt? Especially when we have so many debt instruments out today, known as dollars. How are gold and silver debt devastators? Well, they are because they essentially, for most cases, especially with gold, they retain their value throughout history. And it doesn't really matter what the dollar does. They can only suppress it so much. And by the way, as of the recording of this video, the U.S. government is agreeing upon spending even more money and pulling us into greater debt and deficit spending more dollars than you have. And governments, especially federal or national governments, have the power to do that because, well, they can essentially just print more money. Well, you can mine more gold and silver, but there's only a finite amount of it in the ground. And notwithstanding, with gold being that ultimate hedge against economic instability, inflation and deflation, and all of the concerns that are tied with it, gold is something that is treasured, and it is treasured throughout the world, both culturally and nationally, fiscally. And this is something that I believe throughout many different cultures and different time periods, it will hold true and hold fast, despite of what we're seeing out there with other avenues that are considered valuable in this day and age. The physical gold and silver, indeed. Now, there are electronic versions of both of these as well, and people play in those markets too. And that's okay. That's an area where people can utilize this as a basis in order to make money or transact without actually touching or holding the physical. However, I believe, to prove those electronic markets, there has to be some physical somewhere. Now, most people watching this video are interested in the physical, and I highly encourage folks to get the physical because then, and only then, are you assured that what you hold is true and genuine. Now, obviously, when holding physical gold or silver, you want to get it tested, but once you do have it tested and are assured of the authenticity of the metal itself, well, there you go. You've got it, and the only threat against it is it getting stolen. And there's plenty of other videos that I and others have covered about securing your precious metals, but assuming that they are secure, you have real wealth. Security and authenticity are paramount, and they're basic, and common sense tells us, that once you have those and account for, then you have preserved your wealth. And by the way, it's not to say that gold and silver will make you wealthy, but they will devastate debt. And that's what this video is about, the devastation of debt with gold and silver. Now, silver is the more volatile of the two metals, but it is also the most versatile and the most widely used as currency throughout all of the ages. Silver is an amazing metal in its uses as a commodity, and even if you were to use it see it as solely as a commodity, I believe its value will transcend beyond in many ways that of which is considered a currency or as money because of its multiple uses in technology. It is the technological metal of the age for sure. Now, there are other metals and materials that serve as well, but silver is the most widespread used aside from any other fabricated material out there. There is talks about materials like graphene, artificial replacements for silver and others, but we're ways away from that, and even then, I believe that silver could play a role, and perhaps even in concert with graphene throughout the ages. But nonetheless, it's traded as a commodity in many ways, shapes, or forms, and even as such, it's going to act in that way just as copper would in relation to the commodity markets. But I do believe that, once again, people will see it more and more as dormant money, as something that will protect you as a hedge. And I think that aspect of it, holding the physical, such as you see here, is going to be the way to that people will really understand and see, and as a way to preserve your wealth. Although there are times where obviously it performs better than the rate of inflation, and there are times where it underperforms compared to the rate of inflation. But notwithstanding, silver is an amazing metal in that, the more you have it, the more you are protecting yourself. And so as people accumulate these, it's sort of a savings. It's a way to save. And when you have it as a savings account, you are protecting yourself for all intents and purposes against inflation, because the dollar loses at the very least 2% each year. By some measures, a lot more. And depending on what those measures are, you compare it to silver. Even at silver's weakest performance, it still does better than in the inflation rate by some measures. And also, it's exciting and it's fun to accumulate the many different designs and styles of silver, especially if you are on a limited income. Now, as most of you know, recently, well, within the last couple of years, actually, I've been encouraging my viewers to diversify with gold as well as silver. Learn to measure your own gold to silver ratio. For some of us who are collectors and have various different pieces, it's a little bit difficult to do. But because of some of the premiums tied to some piece of storage and actually counting it. But nonetheless, for hardcore stackers out there or those who just collect ounces, well, that's something you can do. You can set your own gold to silver ratio to what you feel comfortable and move forward there. But holding gold and silver is a way to devastate debt in your life. And I believe that if you need to sell them, they're highly liquid, both metals are, and you are only going to lose the premiums that you paid and perhaps any loss in the spot price, but it's going to be nominal when it's all said and done. Of course, that depends on how much silver you have or gold you have. There is the fear that you could lose a little bit in the spot price, but you take that into account, and by the measure of inflation each year and dollar cost average, well, if you take into account those two things, you should come out about even. And that's what saving is about. Saving is not, anybody says anything about a savings account, especially considering interest rates these days, you're not talking about making vast amounts of money. It's all about keeping what you have. And that's what it's all about with gold and silver. If people really understand and grasp that situation, that the fact that the metals do sell themselves, then you come to realize that the light will begin to shine upon your situation. And understanding these precious metals is paramount to shedding light on knowledge. And that knowledge and truth about these metals is all you need. It doesn't need to be anything bloviated or exaggerated by any stretch for either of these two metals. Understanding what they do, understanding potential losses that you may take, calculating risk, calculating inflation, and all that, and enjoying it too as you accumulate. That's what it's about. And so there you go. So I hope this video helped encourage you that really gold and silver, they do devastate debt. I would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for watching and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.